I'm a graduate, my undergraduate is from a Lutheran college in Fremont, Nebraska. My master's degree is from University of Wisconsin, River Falls, and my PhD is from the University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities. So that's attempting to establish some credibility that I have been doing this. I have been a teacher, a principal, a superintendent now. I believe it's my 44th year combined. Of 37 of those have been a superintendent. I don't know, that may be too long. You know, you can go into a profession too young or get into something too young. I at times have wondered if I was a superintendent before I was 30, and I'm not sure at times you can get tired in a profession. Education is not any different. It can be tiring. But I still do enjoy it. I even enjoyed last night at a school board meeting. It's okay. Sometimes school board meetings are okay, other times they're a curse. As school boards can be a curse too, but that's it's all right. I'm going to primarily talk about Act 10, which may be a curse in itself, if I may say that. But I'm gonna just move off that topic a little bit because some things happened today in education. And I don't know, you've been working, you've been teaching, you've been with children all day, and an event happened today in education that sometimes as administrators we don't have kids all the time, and we can look at our computers or we can see what's happening in current events. And the big event today was that the state superintendent of schools released the state report cards on our schools. 2,111 schools had report cards released on their public schools, and 424 school districts had their report cards released. The report cards it's a ranking. It's called an accountability ranking. The schools are ranked, whether it's a good idea, a bad idea, whether it's appropriate to do it. It's been done today. And I expect that the news tonight or tomorrow in the Journal and all other papers will be reporting on how the schools ranked. There are 5 rankings in the state of Wisconsin on schools. I'll try to get that. I gave Mr. Tomaszewski the press release from the state superintendent Evers. I'm going to start in the middle, and Mr. Tomaszewski can help me with the bottom. You meet expectations, you exceed expectations, you significantly exceed expectations. The bottom 2, Al, are
Fails to meet.
Fails to meet and
Meets few.
meets few. There are only 9 school districts in the state of Wisconsin that significantly exceed expectations in a state report card. There are only 9 out of 424. Hamilton is one. Hamilton is one of the 9 top-ranked school districts in the state of Wisconsin on the report card as of today.
What they're doing, I want to know.
Richfield is one of the other 9, if I may. Raise my hand and say, of the 9, Hamilton is one, Richfield is one, Mecklenburg-Thiensville is another. Some of them you may not know. The Richmond School District, North Lake School District, Norway School District, Swallow School District, and I'm not sure that's 9. And Merton. Those are the 9.
Wow.
That's it. There are no others in the state of Wisconsin. There are only 86 schools in the state of Wisconsin that significantly exceed expectations. Out of
Holy.
2,111 schools, only 86 received that highest ranking. Ridgefield has 2 of them.
Wow.
If I may raise my
96 out
hand.
of 1,000.
On that. Not that I'm proud of that, but
You should be.
that percentage-wise, we have some math teachers in here. Maybe you can tell me what percentage that is, but it's pretty good. They have 2 of the 86
Wow.
schools that are ranked that high out of 2,111. What's the big deal? It is a big deal. We argue whether schools should be rated or not, and it's a legitimate argument to discuss it. But with Act 10, effective teaching, Common Core, all the so-called reforms that you're discussing with Mr. Tomaszewski, you're studying, the ratings are significant. Parents look at them. Parents go online and see where your schools rank. Parents can now pick where their kids go to school. And they don't just go to school based on where they live. They make choices. You only can make choices when there's information. Information is what I just said to you. Hamilton is one of the 9 top-ranked school districts in the state. People look at that, they want to move there, they want to move their families to that community, or they'll open enroll there. They make a decision, people make decisions on information that is now part of the landscape in the state of Wisconsin. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily a proponent of things like effective teaching, which has come to Wisconsin, but it's here. Doesn't mean I am necessarily a fan of the Common Core standards, a top-down system of curriculum, but it's here. And even though there is some controversy, I don't see it going away in the state of Wisconsin. Do I see high-stakes testing leaving the state of Wisconsin? No. In fact, if anything, it's going to become more high stakes in the state of Wisconsin. By the way, as I'm talking and rambling and saying things, ask questions or make comments about what I'm saying. Don't hesitate whatsoever. So I wanted to start out by mentioning it's a big deal today in the education community that report cards have been issued. They're called preliminary because schools, the superintendents have been calling and emailing each other back and forth. I can tell you that because I received some of those calls. The report cards are preliminary because some schools are challenging them. They're saying that the numbers are wrong, that the rankings are wrong. I received our ranking maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and the Department of Public Instruction gives each superintendent in the school district a chance to review the school report card. I had it. I couldn't see anyone else's. It's called embargo. The data is embargo. So I couldn't see how MPS did, or West Allis, West Milwaukee. But I knew what Ridgefield was doing, and I could challenge it. There are going to be challenges. There have been challenges. In fact, today I received an email from the Department of Public Instruction saying that most challenges have been handled, most have been denied. People didn't like the scores, didn't like the rankings, they didn't want to be compared, they didn't like the comparison they had, and they appealed it, but Dr. Michael Thompson is the Deputy State Superintendent of Schools, sent out the email to superintendents and said, most have been handled.
Is there any significance to the date of when these reports are released publicly that you believe?
Yeah, I do. I think it's political. I think it has to be political
Wow.
in order to give schools an opportunity to look at the data ahead of time. It's, the political side, it's after school starts, so that it is not used any more than it is on open enrollment and choice, which have a significant influence on, now with the alternative open enrollment program, where you can open enroll basically anytime in the state of Wisconsin. There used to be a window, now it's basically open. The report cards are controversial. In Hamilton, they're not. In Hamilton, yay, this is the greatest tool in education that's ever come along. And I have to admit, in Richfield today, I sent out an email to the staff telling them what's gone. They thought it's a pretty good deal too. They think it's pretty smart. If we fall off that, you know, the tower, I'm not sure we will think that. So, yeah, I think it's very carefully timed because of the, I have to think if the legislature, is the legislature in session right now? If they are, they're not, it's not during the budget cycle. And in the state of Wisconsin, we have big government. Education is dominated by the legislature and by the governor's office, and you try to do as little as you can while they're in session, because they have their fingers in, I think they have their fingers in everything that's happening in the state of Wisconsin in education and else. We have a state government that says that they want smaller government. We have big government. I have never seen government at a state level in Idaho, Minnesota, or Wisconsin as big as this is, where the government has their fingers in things. So I do think that the timing is everything, and I think it is timed for a September release. People are happy their kids are back at school. Parents are, and they're happy. For if nothing else, they're happy that the kids are in school and you're taking care of the kids. And I don't mean that. We're all as parents, we feel the same way. So watch the paper. There'll be, Dr. Evers' press release will speak in general terms about the state, and you can get into each individual school district's details. MPS, I believe, failed. If I'm not, am I correct, Mr. Tomaszewski? I think MPS was rated as a failing school district. And I'm not passing judgment on that because that's a tough.
So what are the challenges that our people or districts can use to challenge, or the reasons to challenge those scores or those rankings?
The numbers were entered wrong. I had a neighboring school district that indicated that in their entry of data, or in the entry of data, it was entered wrong, that you hit a key wrong, you hit a 1 instead of a 0, let's say, or attendance data. At a high school level, the report cards are far more complicated than an elementary, and there's a lot of information that goes into high schools, and it could be data, or they found that the testing, they may have found a mistake in testing. For example, it makes a difference if a child answers questions or not. On the WKCE, you should tell kids, answer a question, guess, don't leave things blank. And the school the proctor may not have given proper instructions. So those kind
So it
of,
doesn't have to be where like the population that is taking the tests, special education teacher, minority groups, nothing of that.
it is extremely, yeah, groups are not exempted
Yeah,
from testing.
exactly.
They're not exempted. In fact, Mr. Tomaszewski knows this, in a smaller population, like in Richfield, I was ready to send my testing director to India, the country of India, because one of my students was in India, and that student hadn't taken the test, and I was prepared to that one student could have made a significant difference by not answering any question. It would have lowered the test results significantly. And some schools have had trouble either getting everyone tested
Yeah, 'cause they're
or
not-
knowing the significance of getting everyone tested. And that takes away the even playing field in comparing school districts. But those are the things that, it isn't just knowledge that is tested on these high-stakes tests. It's knowing how to give and how to take tests. Give means us, as the administrators. Mr. Tomaszewski did testing for me at Richfield, and it became extremely important on how you give a test in small groups. Some school districts give testing in arena settings, in the cafeteria, in large rooms, study halls. Bad idea. I don't want to be judgmental. It's a bad idea. You give tests to kids in any grade, all the way through high school, in small groups with a proctor who the kids know. Preferably the teacher is the proctor of the test.
Because otherwise they get
It makes a
nervous.
difference
Yeah. I
on
just,
on the results, yes.
I just feel like we are set up to fail in some of the tests that we get. For example, my students are Spanish speakers, and we have to test them in PELS. PELS is English.
Yeah,
They have no idea.
yeah.
So, it goes down and it goes down. For example, math, they have measurements, they have clock, they have all the things that we're not to teach the kids. So, you know what? They get frustrated, so they just play with the computer.
Sure, sure.
So we are setting them up to
Yeah.
fail.
Yeah, I am not arguing that our testing system is appropriate. Going to your question about why the release now, the tests in themselves can be a political instrument.
Yeah.
The test itself can be a political instrument. Whether it's done consciously or unconsciously, it can be. But that's why, when Mr. Tomaszewski and I, and it's been subsequent, and he can speak for this, I work with my staff and with the school board, and I did this at Nicolay too, that testing isn't just testing the knowledge, like an ACT, the SAT, the very, very common PSATs, the common standardized tests that are important in a school like Nicolay, which is a college preparatory high school. Knowing how to take a test, knowing knowledge is very important, but knowing how to take a test,
Yeah.
is really important for the student. That is a skill in itself, how to take tests. From our vantage point as educators, how to give that test does make a difference. If you think that taking a test is the same for everybody in any setting, it is not true.
See.
Settle people down, make the kids calm,
Yeah.
have a nice environment where they're at ease. Even Mr. Tomaszewski would give refreshments. Partway through the test, he gives refreshments and rewards the kids for being cooperative. It isn't just Spanish-speaking students. Students, if they don't see a reason to take a test,
Yeah.
and if there isn't an outcome that they see beneficial to them, why bother? Why should they try in taking a test?
Yeah.
Let's get it over with.
Yeah, yes, yes.
So I'll get it over with.
No
And
incentive.
so
They need
what are you
some
gonna do to me
incentives.
if I don't do well? You're not gonna pass to the next grade? You have to make sure that you have to motivate. And that isn't easy. But that's what I'm saying is that's part of our responsibility, is to motivate the children. Motivate the parents on why it's important to get a good night's sleep the night before a test, to feed the kids at night, feed the kids in the morning so they do well. Yes.
I think all those things are babysitting them. I'm
Yes.
sorry, those are the kids. They have to know how important the test is. I think the society or school itself is not stressing enough why the test is really, really important in their life. I'm from, in Korea, and I know the test is my life as a student. If I fail it, I'm failure. I mean, it's kind of extreme.
Cultural.
But that isn't the
Yeah.
case.
Very cultural.
That test,
Here, the test doesn't mean anything.
It
Yeah.
doesn't-
That's
yeah.
what it
the
is.
test
very
means
cultural.
something
Giving them juice.
to Hamilton.
Right, right,
The test is important to you
right.
as the teacher, or the administrator of the
Scoop it
school.
up.
To the kid, why is that test important? The WKCEs that we administered last year, and now the report card is partially based off of. What significance does that have for the kid?
No.
It does for the teacher, maybe they're paid. Maybe they're gonna get a bonus. Now in the state of Wisconsin, under legislation, you can give bonus. I gave a bonus, I have to admit. I gave supplemental pay to the Richfield School District teachers last year because they were ranked number
Wow.
1 in the state.
I'm moving to that school.
And the board gave them a bonus.
We
It
have
was
conversation
it was the teachers, this is a big deal. But it became the responsibility of the teachers to motivate the kids, just like on anything. As parents, we motivate our children.
Can I just, I'm sorry to interrupt you though.
No,
Can I
go
just-
ahead.
Yes, the parents have to motivate the kids too. But I had some parents last year who, this kid came back to me and said, well, I don't have to do any homework because for my age, he was 5. And he said, for my age, you have to send me to the next grade. So they already know. And I said, who told you that? My uncle did. So, he said he didn't have to do any homework. And he never
That's very
did.
cultural.
He never did.
What should be, we should be motivated, sometimes is different than what is. And that's part of the discussion under the report card. I don't know if the report card is really aimed at stimulating learning as it is aimed at ranking schools. We're told, you're told, don't rank schools. That's a bad thing to do. I did it today. I spent my day ranking school. I did, I have to admit it. I gave Mr. Tomaszewski, he now has the rankings. They won't be in the papers, but he has the rankings as it came out. And he has each score from all the schools in the state of Wisconsin.
Can you
Can you pass that up?
Come
Can we see it, please?
Come on, Al.
Come on.
Education is education.
There you go. Me encanta el Ángeles.
Yes, go ahead.
As a
So
PowerPoint
what
then?
correlation do you think there is between the high test scores or the high grading of the districts and socioeconomic status?
There's a significant correlation. I believe there is.
Well, yeah, several of the districts you named are one school, feeder schools for Arrowhead.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Now, that goes both ways.
Entonces los papás te están diciendo que te dan
Let-
dinero por perder los
I'll defend
exámenes. ¿A dónde
MPS
carajos
for
vamos?
those individuals who criticize the MPS teachers as not being effective, being bad teachers. I
Well,
think
they
it's
see it like
unfair, improper analysis considering the socioeconomic needs that kids come to school in or with. When I say that MPS failed in this, okay, but we as a society need to deal with some of the issues that are causing that to happen, whether it's poverty,
Yeah, yeah.
Other things,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
certainly, I think, in Richfield, I'm fortunate to have parents who do care,
Yeah, it's a difference.
and they're very involved, and they
They're-
expect me to perform and the teachers to perform.
Mira, Marta.
It's an advantage, it's a distinct advantage. At Nicolay, no question.
Yeah, social economic, that's right.
Al and I worked in a school where there are high expectations.
That's it.
95% of the kids at Nicolay go to college.
Yeah,
95%.
And 97% from McGuan Dingsville.
mm.
They do. Not the colleges they go to aren't as good as the Nicolay. I'm kidding. So, yes.
I teach in Racine and I
Tú sabes
feel that the whole
que tengo
parent
un
component
estudiante
is
que yo
huge, and I don't know if it's because I have an early childhood background and I'm not only educating the student, I'm educating the parent on how to be a parent, because my first year of teaching, right out of college, I had parents that were younger than I was and had 4 kids already, and so I feel like when you're looking at that, and you're looking at it, but when other people are looking at fail, pass, exceeds, not exceeds, they're not looking at the issue of this parent can't get their child to school to take that test, to fill in whatever answers they choose, because they don't have the transportation, or dad's in jail, and mom has
Yeah.
schoolwork, and grandma can't take them, and
Yeah.
so it'd be nice to see a report card that
Yeah.
reflected
They don't
those
see it as
kinds
this
of
is important.
things.
That's
you
too
know?
difficult.
They know
It's
that they're
very
not
easy
going
to
to
take a
college.
test and put a score up and then to draw conclusions. It
Exactly.
is, I will admit, I will be using the results. I will use them. I used them at Nicolay, I'll use them at Richfield to attract people and to reward the good teaching that's going on. I have good teachers. They work very, very hard, and so I'm not just going to poo-poo these results. I also, in an effort to stem what had happened in Richfield maybe 7, 8 years ago, open enrollment, people going out, I now have people coming into the Richfield School District. It's a marketing game. There's marketing. I market. You have to market, which isn't necessarily an appropriate educational tool, but I do. Al, can you look up, how did Racine do?
Who meets a few expectations?
Meets few expectations.
Wow, which one?
So next year, when the schools, for the high schools, go to the ACT instead of the WKCE, we, at least at our district, the kids would get to be exempt from their classes depending on how they did on the WKCE. So they could get exempt from, socially, whatever else. So there was an incentive even for kids that didn't want to go to college, whatever else. Now, our school district this last year went down 1.2 in ACT. Now that they'll all take it, I think districts are gonna be shaking in their boots because the scores are gonna go through
Yeah, what you're at,
the Muskego.
Muskego, what you're referring to is that Dr. Evers has made a commitment in utilization of various tests. ACT, it's an ACT package that uses the Explorer test, the ACT, there's a whole battery of tests.
Not common.
Now, that raises some issues too of how much testing is enough.
Yes.
Where do we allow teachers to teach instead of always assessing? If assessing is being used to improve
To the
teaching,
test.
good for
It's
us.
a very different.
If assessing is being used for marketing, for attacking education, attacking educators, not so good for us. If it's a political tool, because legislators or the governor are attacking us. And there can be different uses. Even at Nicolay, I was very concerned. I was opposed at the time it happened. When No Child Left Behind came, you're all too young for that.
Yeah.
Back in, what was it, 93, 94, when No Child Left Behind came, and WKCE then came as the Wisconsin model for meeting No Child Left Behind. I argued, I was one of those, as I was superintendent at Nicolay at the time, that there's too much testing. At Nicolay, we were
Yeah.
testing the
Yeah.
kids, because it's college preparatory, a lot of tests. So what good is another test going to do to help the teachers
To
in
finally
teaching?
teach, yeah.
I think that argument is still a valid argument in this whole process, is that, and we're even doing more testing now. We're
Yeah.
doing more, quote,
It's the next
assessing.
step.
And there's a point where the teachers are just, they're overwhelmed with the testing process. And if we have kids in school 180, 181 days, just think how much time we're using for assessing.
Oh, good.
And how much time can teachers
To teach.
use for absorbing
Yeah.
the information that they gain? I am all for accountability. Accountability is just fine, it's good. But accountability doesn't, there's a point where common sense comes into play, good educational doctrine comes to play, and that you have to have confidence in your administrators and in your teachers that they will be delivering the product with the children without having to be told by Madison or Washington DC, by people who aren't educators, who may not have gone to college. I'm not referring to anyone here.
No.
I'm not alluding to
Que no
anyone.
se terminó.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not.
Pero él
You
exige.
can draw your own
Nunca,
conclusions
desgraciada
from
de
that
tuyas, que
statement.
No se graduó, no se graduó el
They're telling us what to do.
fue capaz.
They're making the policy, they're making the laws. And
And people elect them.
we
Yeah.
spend our lives
Which is the
dedicated
worst
to
part.
children, not for political
Based on
purposes,
research.
because, listening to, going around the table. You like what you're doing. 3 degrees. It can be a frustrating job. You work all day, go home at night, and work long, still.
Yeah.
You take everything home at
We
night.
go ahead to print stuff.
Yet, how often, outside of our community, meaning the education community, are you given credit for the dedication that you put into being a teacher? Whether it's academically, going to football games, dances with children, helping children grow up and to be responsible adults. Any other comments before I'm burning up the whole time on the test scores, report cards, but it is my perception that today was an important day in the state, if for no other reason. When I started getting phone calls, I didn't get one from Kathy Cook. I got a couple emails from her, but I didn't get any phone calls from her. Damon Means, the superintendent of Mequon-Thiensville, called me today to discuss. He congratulated me and I congratulated him, because he was one of the 9, those self-congratulatory system. And we both laughed, meaning we understood what we were doing. Let's look at the outline that you have, the Act 10.
Como es de educación especial.
Act 10 was an act that I never thought could happen in the state of Wisconsin. I will have to tell you, things happened in the state of Wisconsin as a result of Act 10 I just didn't think legally, morally, ethically could ever take place. They have. And up front, I'll say, they may never be undone. It may never happen that Act 10 can ever be undone unless court challenges, and those court challenges are diminishing. Because there was just a court decision September 11th by Judge Connolly that turned down one of the legal actions, and there are still a couple out there on Act 10, but from a legislative and a political perspective, to undo Act 10, you'd have to have a governor, a Senate, and an assembly that all are willing to undo what Act 10 has done I don't know that's ever gonna happen,
Oh,
at least in my lifetime. That's the significance of what's happened, is that it was a significant act. Things like redistricting legislative bodies, or districts, is significant, because when you redistrict, as
Is it
has happened in
governor,
Wisconsin,
legislator, or
where
what else?
districts are safe districts for political parties, usually Democrats and Republicans, they can't lose. You can't lose. And there are districts now that are gonna be Democratic, they're gonna be Democratic, and they're gonna be Republican forever, for a long, at least as long as I'm alive. There were court challenges that found that the redistricting in two areas, there were two Spanish-speaking communities, districts, was done illegally, and they were redistricted. But outside of the two, those are the only two that were found to have been done illegally. There is a bill that's coming before the legislature, I don't know where it's gonna go, that redistricting can no longer be done for the majority party who has the majority in the legislature, that it should be done by a nonpartisan group. In many states, it's a group of judges that determine the boundaries of legislative districts because of what happened in Wisconsin. That
There's
this
no
was
way we're
such
gonna
an
see that.
outrageous process in the state of Wisconsin. Maybe not illegal, but it was outrageous, that it has to change. So, to start out, let me just say, I think Act 10 is also, like I said, the report cards are significant, Act 10 is significant. It's not going away. We operate in public schools with employee handbooks. Muskego has an employee handbook. Racine has an employee handbook. You don't bargain. You bargain for salary. You can bargain for salary.
Not anymore.
One thing, but if the school board doesn't want to, they don't have to agree. And they can just impose a salary increase.
Or not. So it sounds
I'll
like-
give you my opinion. It sounds strange coming from a superintendent. I've lived in union towns. Duluth, Minnesota is a big union town. Very, very powerful. Have I fought with unions? I have fought with unions. Have I fought with unions? Being a superintendent, that's part of it. I'm management, they're labor,
Excuse me.
but they were important, or they are important. We are a one-party state in Wisconsin right now. One political party. The offset to the Republican Party is, or was, the Democratic Party. And what was the Democratic Party? It was unions. And without unions, the Democratic Party is very weak.
Yeah.
It's a one-party state. We do not have a balance. Education. Who is a voice for education right now?
Nobody.
In the state of Wisconsin, it used to be WEAC. Whether I agreed with them or not, they had a place at the table. Do I think superintendents have a place at the table on education? There are only 424 of us. And unless we're wealthy and can make contributions, we don't get much power. Principals, do they have a place at the table? I don't think so. There is not an effective voice for education as a result of Act 10. Act 10, I think, was a union-busting action. It wasn't the balanced budget.
People voted for it.
It was a union-busting activity, and it worked. Unions have been busted in the public sector. One thing I didn't mention, I was an alderman in the city of Glendale for 3 terms. I didn't run in April. And so I've been a part of Act 10. Act 10 applies to the public sector in cities as well. And I, as an alderman, was a part of Act 10 there, where the police and the firemen were exempted from Act 10.
Yeah, that's, I don't get it.
And they were exempted because, I think, They made contributions to political campaigns, or apolitical campaigns. You know what I'm saying? It's bad.
No, I think
And
it's
you
just 'cause
notice
we
that
cannot be
there are no
without
bills coming forward
firemen or
to make them part
policemen.
of Act 10. That stopped. There was a discussion, small discussion, it's not gonna happen. Also, I think transit drivers are exempted too. No, I'm not sure why transit drivers are. Governor Walker said that he exempted firemen and policemen because he thought there might be civil unrest because of Act 10, and he needed to control the populace.
Yeah,
Think about that,
That's not true.
thinking that we as residents of Wisconsin are going to overthrow the government, and
Yeah.
we're not. We're teachers. We're educators. We respect. Even if we don't agree, we respect. Do we demonstrate? Sure. Well, they have 100 and some thousand people times demonstrating in Madison. There's a difference between being respectful and respecting the law and saying, okay, we don't agree with it, but that's part of our society as Americans, is that we'll follow it, but we're gonna tell you we don't like it. And that's what makes us different, I would think, especially as educators. It's okay to speak out, but when it's all said and done, we do what we need to do. We teach children, we teach people right from wrong, we pay our taxes, we go to church, we serve on boards, we're good citizens. But it doesn't mean we have to remain quiet. Employee handbooks are acted upon unilaterally by school boards. I wrote our employee handbook, along with a gentleman that Mr. Tomaszewski knows, who made recommendations to me, and I took it to the school board. It wasn't negotiated. Even though our board made it open, they allowed the teachers to come in and listen to the discussion and have input. It wasn't bargained. The employee handbook can be changed at any time, where before something was to be changed in employee relations, it had to be bargained. For example, last night at the school board meeting, I recommended that the pay for our student council advisor be established at $960. It hadn't been a paid position before. I said, the person works hard. I recommend to the board they do it. They did it. So the handbook is now changed off that one action, and now the person is being paid for starting this year. Before, co-curricular activities, as well as salaries, working conditions, fringe benefits, were bargained. Again, you can view that as good or bad. I never had a difficulty or resented having to sit down with my staff in talking about their working environment. I didn't agree with them. Sometimes I got angry. Sometimes I walked out. But I'd like to think when everything is said and done, there was respect on both sides. I respected them, and they respected me for what I did, and I respect them for what they did. The handbook has changed with Act 10. Health insurance. The health insurance component of Act 10, the major target of health insurance was the WEA Trust. Anyone familiar with the insurance company, WEA Trust? It's perceived as being union insurance. It's very good insurance. Very good. And with the elimination of collective bargaining, and boards being able to cancel insurance contracts, many districts did. They went away from the trust, the WEA Trust. Trust still exists. It still serves many of the educators in the state, but now they've moved into municipal government. I said before, I was an alderman, Whitefish Bay has now signed up for the WEA Trust, and they insure their employees with the WEA Trust. Shows how things turn a little bit. But I believe that the trust was a target of Act 10.
Our district, we had that, and then even though they countered with a good, amount of money in terms of that, of saying, we will give you this, our, school board says no, we're changing, because they felt too that.
They were union related. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there was a perception that they were union controlled. And as soon as you use that word union, that's perceived as being bad. I don't believe they're union controlled. I do believe that they provided good services. Here, I'm going to get an advertisement, I'm going to have a billboard going in here. And I don't mean that, but Richfield is under, we are with the trust, Nick Lay was with the trust. And I find that if my employees are well served by things like a good insurance company, they're able to do a better job in the classroom.
Yeah.
If their needs are taken with their family members, with themselves, and they don't have to worry about the financial consequences of illness or catastrophic happenings in your life, you're able to concentrate on your profession. And I felt the trust did a nice job. Doesn't mean other insurance companies don't.
I was actually coming from a trip, and I had this lady who was sitting right next to me, and so, we started talking, and I said, so what do you do? And she said, I'm a teacher in Canada. And I'm like, oh, okay. But we're really upset. And I said, why? Well, because they take some of our sick days off. And I said, well, how many days do you have? And she said, well, we have 2 a month. I said, what? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, we have 2 a year. They're like, you're kidding. What do you do when you get sick? I said, we get unpaid days.
Yeah.
So they, instead of having whatever, they took 2 away from them.
The other component of healthcare is now, you
Yeah.
have to, the most the school district can pay towards your health insurance is 88%. You know what I mean by that? Some school districts had as part of their collective bargaining that the district would pay the total premium on health insurance.
Uh-huh.
By law now, instead of allowing the local school district, I keep picking at Hamilton, but I can remember Hamilton, they may have had in their collective bargaining agreement, the board picked up the full premium on insurance.
Wow.
Act 10 said, can't do that anymore. Employees have to pick up a portion, 12%, whatever it may be, but it's usually 12%. And the same thing applied to pensions, where previously, and those of you in the public schools more than likely had your total pension paid by the school district, the employer and the employee portion. Now, can't do that. You have to pay the employee portion, and the board pays the employer portion. When you add those two together, those two things together, they kick in on the health insurance premium and the pension. That's a lot of money for a teacher.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. And if you're a young teacher, I have some in Richfield who have 3 children, and let's say you're making $50,000, and Act 10 kicked in, people were getting worried, and they still are, of what is the take-home pay. Now, an argument is, well, that pension you'll get when you retire. I get a pension right now. I'm one of those people. I am getting a pension. I'm working, but I'm getting a pension. I'm that old. That's fine. But for the young teacher, male or female, young family, those dollars do make a difference. And take-home pay, for putting food on your table, buying gas, paying the mortgage, it isn't that cavalier. And I don't think it's cavalier to do that.
added stress to the profession.
Pardon?
It's added stress to the profession.
It has, it has.
Besides the things we have to deal with in the classroom
Yeah.
and within the schools, you still have that thing going on.
Of course. I do think there has been I'm not opinionated at all on these things. I think there has been a conscious effort to disrespect our profession.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I
We were
was saying.
just talking about.
And it's a
that.
political,
Yeah.
disrespecting of our profession, public employees.
Yeah.
And that's harmful not only for educators, but it's harmful for
the
society
kids. Yes.
to be
Yes.
attacking teachers. Teachers
Yeah.
are important for a well-structured society. I don't care if it's in America, I don't care if it's in Korea, I don't care if it's in Japan. Teachers should be respected, a respected profession, not the butt of political commentary on WTMJ every morning for about 5 hours, or on WISN with pundits attacking teachers. It undercuts your authority.
Yes.
It undercuts the respect that the kids will show
Yeah,
to you, for the parents showing towards you.
yeah.
And that's harmful to our society, not just for you and your personal benefit, but how our communities function. You're the stability. You're the people that communities rely on to provide for the future growth. Again, I mentioned, you pay your taxes, you go to church, you serve on community committees to better your communities. That's what we need in a community. And without the respect, that just undercuts what's happening in society. Totally. And it isn't just your financial benefits, but you have a right to a living, like anyone else does. Well, it's okay that you earn a living. Union membership has dissipated in the state of Wisconsin, in the teaching profession. In the Richfield Education Association, I don't know if Al knows this, it's down to 8 members. It's a certified union still, but it's down to 8 members. That's all.
No.
And why? Is
No.
because teachers who are not making much money to begin with. And you say, well, and I'm gonna give a number, and I don't know if it's accurate, but if your annual dues are $400 a year, I don't know what they are.
$67.76 a month.
Okay,
Alice.
okay, now that you know that, okay. But if you say, well, this is a chance to save some money, to buy the food, to buy, gas and what have you, you say, what good is this gonna do me to belong to the union? They can't bargain,
That's
there are grievances, so what's the purpose? It's a vicious cycle. And if the unions aren't strong, things get worse. And they're gonna get worse. If you think Act 10 was the end of it, it is not the end of it. It's gonna get worse in the state of Wisconsin. There's nothing to stop things from happening in this state. Bad things from happening.
Such as?
What we call, oh, yeah.
The retirement fund.
Oh.
Wisconsin has a very good retirement fund. It could be they're gonna take a look at the retirement fund and say, let's privatize it. I know you were talking about privatizing before. Let's privatize it. Now, if you think for a moment, if the retirement fund had been privatized in 2008 when the recession hit, where would we be? Where would we be as people in the state of Wisconsin? Teachers who were living off of a pension, people who had invested. Under our retirement system, it's a good system. It's well-funded. There are 2 types of investment. There's the core and the variable. You guys are too young to be in the variable. I don't think you can do it anymore. Variable is, it fluctuates from year to year, how well the stock market and bonds go. Core is spread out over a period of time. You probably don't even notice this stuff because you're so young and you don't watch how your investments are going. But the core investments in your retirement fund don't go up or down easily. They're pretty constant. That's the way it should be, so that when you have a recession, it isn't a famine. That if people are gonna live off of a pension, you wanna make sure your money is there when you retire. If that's what you're gonna live on. By the way, you know what the average pension is in the state of Wisconsin? Remember when Act 10 came in and we were talking about how teachers were living off the fat of the land? You know, the average pension in the state of Wisconsin is $21,000.
Oh, my God.
A lot of money, isn't it?
Wow,
You're gonna get wealthy.
A month?
You- 21,000.
wow,
No, annual.
Annually?
$21,000 is what the average pension is to recipients in the state of Wisconsin,
Annually, you said?
annually.
so you can
I mean, it's not
retire,
that we're,
but go back to work. Wow.
It's a myth. Detroit, you hear about Detroit is bankrupt. And that the
Que
Detroit
precio la
public
gana
employees are gonna have to give
so
up
much. portions
portions of their pension. The annual pension in the city of Detroit is
Marta.
$19,000.
Hagamos nuestra escuela.
Maybe you can.
Sinceramente.
I don't think you can. I can't live on $19,000. I don't know how you do it. And yet we're talking about taking that away. So when you're saying, what if the legislature and the governor say, we want to move the pension to privatize it? What if? They've studied it, it's been discussed, they haven't done it. Now, some of you are private schools.
Should be illegal.
Be careful, this is where I said, I'll try not to offend people too much on this, but the state of Wisconsin, in the last legislative session, is giving a tax credit for kids to attend private schools. Why? Why is that happening? I'm paying now for somebody's child to go to private school, to go to your school. I don't know if you're in the voucher program, but.
Yeah, we are.
Because a parent now can get a tax credit. Is it up to, for high school students, $12,000 a year?
Or at 10, and then I
10.
think, but that's subtracting it from your adjusted gross income.
Yes, it is.
Okay, not subtracting it from your tax.
You're right. I'll take a $10,000 deduction off my gross income. I never thought that would happen.
Wow.
Why should there be a tax credit on a child going to private school? It's almost like the state of Wisconsin is promoting kids not going to public school. They go to private school.
That's what we're doing.
You said up to $10,000, so is it actually the amount of the tuition that they can deduct from their taxes? Or no matter what the tuition cost is, they just get to deduct $10,000?
It's a tuition.
It's the tuition, okay,
And the elementary students are less.
yes.
And it's less because
8,000.
high schools are more expensive places than elementary schools, and so it was built on a graduated scale. My general comment, my opinion, when that came up in the legislature, just came out of the blue, I said, you gotta be kidding. But it's an example of things that never thought of would happen. Taking tax dollars, public money, it's one thing to have a voucher program, which, well, I can talk
A
about.
lot of it, yes.
That's one thing, taking public money to support choice schools. It's another thing to actually give a tax credit
Yeah.
to go to a private school. So that's an example of, to me, it's an example of, I don't believe there's anything out of bounds that could happen. Now, Senator Olson, there are 2 Republican senators that have proposed legislation to have voucher schools be accountable in the same way that public schools are. Meaning, they take the WKCEs, they'll take test scores, they'll be published, they'll be ranked, just like,
Excuse me, in that legislation that is proposed, are schools also, voucher schools also obliged to provide services to minorities, to special ed, etc.?
it is my understanding, no.
Ah,
No.
there
Now,
you go.
whether, Senator Olson, he's from the area, the middle of the state. It's my understanding, before the committee, the State Senate Committee, it received a rough hearing. And whether that bill passes or not is rather doubtful. Now, if we talk about accountability, why, if public money is being spent